Hello and welcome to Fireside Fairytales. My name is Rory, and you are watching Varietal Literature's YouTube page, which is also a website, varietal-literature.ca. We are a group of Vancouver writers who just enjoy having fun with narrative. If you want to read stories from myself, written by me, you can go to the website. But tonight we're reading stories from the past, specifically fairy tales, as we do every Tuesday night at 6:30. And what we're going to read tonight is 3 stories about one character, which is the little fox. Now, like a lot of, if you follow along as we've been reading through stories this year, you can know that there's a lot of sort of recurring forms to the tales. There's a version of Cinderella for every major cultural group in Europe, for example. Not exactly, but pretty close. But what I find interesting about the fox is not only are the stories repeated in variant forms across different cultures, some pretty disparate from each other, you see the same attitude in it, the same characterization, and they often pair it with a wolf. Now, I don't really know why they pair it with a wolf, but they do. So you can find fox tales in the Yeats Irish book? No, not Yeats. Different Irish book. Scottish folktales, Norwegian folktale, which we read on this channel around November, I think, called How the Broom Lost Its Tail, but is actually about a clever little fox, and actually is a story that we will see in part repeated in our stories here tonight. And so, yeah, Irish, Scottish, Norwegian, Nordic in general. Oh, yeah, there's a Slavic version, which makes sense because we're going to be reading the Ukrainian versions, carrying on with our Ukrainian book here. But there's also a general Slavic collection of folk tales that has a tale of a fox and a wolf from about almost 100 years, collected almost 100 years prior to the version that we're going to read tonight. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to read these stories. And the thing that stands out for me about it, which I noted in the advertisement for this, is how much the fox reminds me of a character like Bugs Bunny. In this kind of chaotic, neutral, not necessarily good, kind of a little bit wicked, but definitely the protagonist, clever little thing that pulls tricks on people and just for things it wants. And I think you could probably overthink it a lot as to why would people want to do it that way, or why do people view foxes that way. I think really all it comes down to is foxes are little silly thieves. They steal chickens and eggs and such. Like they are clever, like cats really, but more tenacious. So we're going to read 3 stories about this fox character who has presence all over European folklore. And we'll get a feel for how European folklore, in general, treats the fox. And this one specifically is from The Magic Egg and Other Tales from Ukraine, which is a collection from the 90s of Ukrainian folktales. Because again, we are trying to keep Ukrainian folktales and culture alive. We talked a little bit about that last week. And by the way, I meant to mention this last week and it slipped from my mind. Consider donating to the Red Cross. If you're in Canada, Canadian government is matching those donations. But even if you're not, the Red Cross is always a safe bet to donate to. They are a, relatively politically neutral organization that is there to care for the people that get caught in the middle of things as awful as war. So yeah, I mean, that would be my advice for the day. GS says, good evening, beautiful fox. Will be interesting to hear why fox get a bad rap. Well, we'll see. So I won't waste any more time. If you are not watching this live and you are watching this later, know that there will be timestamps in the description where you can jump ahead to these different stories if you're only interested in certain ones. And that's just because I don't want you to have to watch things you don't want to watch. So let me get my my starting drink of water. And begin with the Clever Little Fox. So this is the Clever Little Fox from the Magic Egg and Other Tales from Ukraine. A traditional tale collected. Clever Little Fox. Little Fox was running down the road one day when she stumbled over a big log and stubbed her toe, jammed a splinter into her foot. "Oh dear," she cried, "my poor little foot." She hobbled down the road, whimpering, "My poor little foot, my poor little foot." Little Fox thought about her cozy foxhole and how nice it would be to be there now. She headed toward home, but she couldn't move very fast, and soon it grew dark and cold. Little Fox was not even close to home. "Now what will I do?" she thought to herself. Just then she saw the lighted window of a little hut. She limped up the door and knocked. An old man came to the door and peered out into the darkness. "Who's there?" he asked. "It's me, Little Fox," she said. "I hurt my foot and I'm far from home. Won't you please let me spend the night here?" For a moment the man was quiet. Then he answered, "Well, I don't really have room for you, Little Fox. My hut is small and there are no spare beds." "Oh, please," begged the fox. "I don't need a bed. I can curl up in a corner, wrap up in my tail, and sleep quite peacefully." "Well, all right then," the man agreed. And as soon as Little Fox stepped inside, she started moaning and groaning. "Why, Little Fox, what's the matter?" asked the man. "Oh, it's my poor little foot," whined the fox. Here, let me have a look." "Sit on this chair under the lamp," offered the man. So Little Fox jumped up on the chair and the old man peered at her foot. "Why, it's nothing but a splinter. Here, I'll pull it out." But when the man reached for the Little Fox's foot, she quickly drew it away, crying, "No, no, it will hurt." "Nonsense," said the man. "Just sit still and it will be all over in a jiffy." The Little Fox gingerly extended her foot to him, and he gave a quick tug, and out came the splinter, and the man tossed it into the fireplace. "There you are, you silly thing. Don't you feel better now?" "Well, yes. What did you do with my splinter?" "Why, I put it in the fire, so it can never harm anyone again," replied the man. "But that was my splinter," the fox protested. "I want it back." "Well, it's burned to ash now," the old man chortled. "What good is a splinter to you anyway?" "None of your business," Little Fox shouted. "You had no right to burn my splinter. It was my only possession and you destroyed it. Now you must pay." "That's ridiculous," said the man. And it was. But Little Fox would not listen. All night they argued, until finally the sun came up. Then the old man threw up his arms. "Take one of my chickens then and be on your way," he said. "But don't ever show your face at my door again." Little Fox wasted no time. She grabbed a fat hen, tucked it under her arm, and went running down the road. Oh, she was proud of herself. She just had to sing a little song. "Ho, ho, hee, hee, I'm as clever as can be. I can outsmart the old man, and he can't outsmart me. Ho, ho, hee, hee." Little Fox ran and ran, not paying any attention to where she was going. Then the sky began to darken and the air became chilly. Again, she was faced with the problem of where to spend the night. But when she spotted a farmhouse down the road, she knew what to do. Up the door she went. Knock, knock, knock. "Who's there?" An old farmer and his wife came to the door. "It's me, Little Fox, and I need a place to spend the night." "We don't have room for you, Little Fox. As you can see, our house is small and quite full," replied the farmer. "Oh, I can curl up in a corner and wrap myself in my tail, and I'll be just fine for the night." "Well, okay. agreed the farmer and his wife. As little fox stepped inside, she looked around and said, "Where should I put my chicken?" "What's this, a chicken too? Well, put her in with the ducks," said the farmer. "Will she be safe there?" asked the fox. "Don't be silly. Of course she'll be safe as our ducks." So little fox set her chicken in the duck pen and curled up in a corner to sleep. As soon as she heard the farmer start snoring, little fox got up and tiptoed to the duck pen. She grabbed the chicken and gobbled it up. Then she scattered the feathers all around and cleaned her face and paws, then went back to the corner to sleep. The next morning, little fox got up and began to look all around the house. "Here, chickie, chickie, here, chickie, chickie." As she approached the duck pen, she gasped, "Oh, my poor little chicken." The farmer and his wife came running. "My chicken was eaten alive by your bad ducks." Little fox pointed to the feathers that were strewn all over the duck pen and began to sob. "But chicken was all I had in the world. Whatever will I do?" The old farmer and wife looked at one another, baffled. The fox kept crying, though, till finally the farmer's wife whispered something to the farmer, and then the farmer took a duck from the pen and pushed it forward toward the fox. "Here, take this in place of your chicken, then," he said. "But please be on your way now. We have a lot of work to do." Little fox was not crying now. She grabbed the duck, tucked it under her arm, and raced down the road as happy as can be. Soon she was humming and singing again. "Ho, ho, hee, hee, I'm as clever as can be. I trade a splinter for a hen and a hen for a duck. Ho, ho, hee, hee." Well, little fox was not running toward her foxhole, but away from it. Once again, as night fell, she began to look for a place to stay. Ah, what luck! Another cozy farmhouse. Little fox trotted up to the door. Knock, knock, knock. "Who's there?" called the voices from inside. "It's me, little fox. Won't you spend the night?" "Our house is too small. We have no room for you," the farmer replied. "I don't need a bed. I can curl up in a corner and wrap myself in my tail, and I'll be just fine." "Well, if you're sure, I suppose that'll be all right." The farmer and his wife opened the door, and the little fox stepped in. "Where can I put my duck?" she asked. Perhaps your duck should sleep in the barn with our lambs," suggested the farmer. "Are you sure my duck will be safe with the lambs?" asked little fox. "Well, yes," replied the farmer. "Why wouldn't she be?" "One never knows," said the fox, shaking her head and rolling her eyes. "But if you say so, I believe you." So the fox left the duck in the barn with the lambs. She went back to the house, curled up in a corner, and waited until the farm and his wife were asleep. Then she tiptoed out to the barn, grabbed the duck, and gobbled it up, and scattered the feathers all over the lamb's pen. Who didn't see that coming? She licked herself clean, ran back to the house, curled up in a corner, and wrapped herself in her tail, and fell fast asleep. Next morning, little fox went out to the barn and began to call at the top of her lungs. "Fear, ducky, ducky! Fear, ducky, ducky!" "Oh, where is my precious little duck?" Then she shrieked loudly, and the farmer and his wife came running. "Why, look! Your nasty little lambs have eaten my dear little duck. Whatever will I do?" she cried. Then little fox began to sob. The farmer and his wife just looked at each other. Who ever heard of a lamb eating a duck? They didn't know what to say. "That duck was all I had in the whole wide world. You must pay me for my loss," insisted the fox. "We can't afford to pay you," said the farmer. "But perhaps you'd like to take one of our lambs in exchange." So the little fox grabbed the biggest, juiciest lamb and went running down the road, laughing and singing as she went. Ho, ho, hee, I'm as clever as can be. I trade a silver for a hen for a duck, and a duck for a lamb. Ho, ho, hee. Once again it grew dark, and Little Fox looked about for a place to stay. When she spied a farmhouse, she quickly ran up to the door. Knock, knock, knock. Who's there? It's me, Little Fox. I need a place to spend the night. Little Fox peeked into the house and saw a warm fire burning in the fireplace. Something smelled delicious, too. Little Fox had gone all day without food, and now she was hungry. Her mouth watered. Sorry, our house is full. The farmer started to close the door, but Little Fox quickly stuck her foot inside. I don't need a bed. I'll just curl up in the corner, wrap myself in my tail, and spend the night that way, please, 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 please. It's so cold and dark out there. All right, said the farmer. As Little Fox stepped into the house, she looked around and asked, And where can I put my lamb? Goodness, a lamb too, and a fat one at that. Well, I guess you can put him in the yard. Hey, look, Spam's back. Hello, Spam. Everybody say hello to Spam, how we've missed it. I genuinely thought that maybe with YouTube being cut off from spam farms, or at least one of the major sources of them, I wouldn't have as much. But look at, there it is. Noble and brave. All right. Let's get rid of you. Report unwanted commercial content or spam. You would think that YouTube could automate that. Like they would just reckon. Nobody's putting in messages like that. Is the yard safe? Asked the little fox. Oh, yes. Look how tall the fence is. And strong, too. I built it myself, said the farmer. So Little Fox put her lamb in the yard and went in the house and curled up in a corner. But as soon as she was certain everyone had dozed off, she jumped up, tiptoed out to the yard, grabbed the lamb, and gobbled it up. Then she cleaned herself up, ran back to the house where she slept quite soundly through the night. The next morning when she awoke, she immediately ran out to the yard and called, Lambikins, where are you? When the lamb did not appear, Little Fox began wailing at the top of her lungs, and the farmer and his wife ran up and asked what happened. My precious Lambikins is gone, Little Fox cried. Nothing like this has ever happened to me before. I just can't believe it. The lamb was all I owned in the world, and now thanks to you, he's gone. The farmer and his wife protested. But Little Fox, it's not our fault if your lamb ran away. Oh, yes, it is. Your daughter left the house early this morning to milk the cows. She must have let my lamb escape when she went out. The daughter overheard what Little Fox said, and she ran up and started arguing. No, I didn't even see your lamb when I went out, and I was very careful to close the gate behind me when I left the yard. That proves it, yelled Little Fox. Then she demanded to be paid, this time with the farmer's daughter. What a ruckus. Little Fox yelled, the farmer and his wife cried, and the daughter screamed and stamped her foot on the floor. This went on for some time until the farmer finally calmed down, interrupted the shouting, and said, Okay, Little Fox, you win. Take our only daughter, but you know she will try to run away, and let me put her in a sack for you so you can carry her off easy. Well, that's more like it, said the fox. The farmer turned to his wife, patted her on the shoulder, and whispered something in her ear. Won't you have a cup of tea before your journey? Asked the farmer's wife, dabbing her eyes in the farmer's voice, dabbing her eyes with her handkerchief. Little Fox agreed, and they went to the kitchen, where they sat sipping tea and gazing out the window. Little Fox chatted about travel, and the farmer's wife nodded quietly, sniffling from time to time. After a while, the farmer returned, carrying a large sack he'd carefully tied up at the neck. Here she is, little fox, announced the farmer, and now you had the best be on your way. Half the day's gone already, and you have a long way to go, I suspect. Little fox didn't even finish her tea. She jumped over and grabbed the sack. Oof! It was heavy, though. But she managed to throw it over her shoulder and start jauntily down the road. She was gasping a little, but she was so happy. She even sang her little ditty. Ho, ho, hee, I'm as clever as can be. I trade a splinter for a hen for a duck for a lamb for a girl, and now I've got the girl. Ho, ho, hee. When she finished the song, she gave the bag a shake and said, Isn't that right, my lovely dinner? Grrr. What a nasty thing you are, scolded Little Fox. Why, you sound just like an animal. Come on, be a nice girl and sing with me. And she began her song again. Ho, ho, hee, I'm as clever as can be. Little Fox set the bag down. What is going on in here? She demanded. I'd better have a look. But as soon as she undid the tie, a big dog leaped out of the bag and began chasing her. Little Fox ran and ran with the dog nipping at her heels all the way. She finally reached her foxhole, hopped in, and lay panting in the dark. The dog stood just outside the door, sniffing, licking his chops, but he was too big to get in. How did I let myself get outsmarted like this? Thought Little Fox. She mulled over the day's events and wondered what had gone wrong. Then she began to ask questions. Little feet, what did you do when the dog chased me? And her feet replied, Ran fast into the wood so the dog couldn't catch you and make you his food. Oh, that's good, Little Feet. For that I will buy you some red leather boots. Her feet tapped against the burrow floor in delight. Then Little Fox spoke to her ears. Little ears, what did you do when the dog came near? And the ears replied, We listened carefully for the dog's hot breath, because we knew if he caught us, it was certain death. Very good, cheered Little Fox. For what I would buy you a pair of beautiful golden earrings for that. Her ears twitched gleefully. Then she said, Little eyes, what did you do to keep the dog from my hide? And the eyes replied, We looked keen, sharp, and clear, because we didn't want the dog to eat our foxy dear. Oh, yes, for that I will find you a pair of golden spectacles. The eyelashes fluttered and the eyelids batted, and Little Fox turned to her tail. Big bushy tail, please tell me, how did you help me flee? But the tail just lay there. The fox cleared her throat and spoke louder. Big bushy tail, please tell me, how did you help me flee? Nothing. Little Fox repeated her question one last time. Big bushy tail, please tell me, how did you help me flee? Still, there was no response. Traitor, she shrieked. For that I will let the dog bite you. She thrust her tail out the door. The dog took one look at that fluffy red tail and sank his teeth into it. Yow! Little Fox replied, but it was too late. The dog bit her tail off completely, and he went running home to show it to his master. Little Fox lay in her burrow, whimpering all night long. The next day she went out to hunt and came upon a family of rabbits. When they saw a Little Fox without a tail, they burst into laughter. Even the baby bunnies pointed and laughed. Well, laugh all you like, you dumb rabbits, sneered the fox. I may not have a tail, but I bet I know how to do the circle dance better than any of you. GS says, this fox's voice is getting higher and higher. That's what happens when your throat dries out. You go more and more into your nasal range. The rabbits looked at one another. Circle dance? What's that? What? You don't know the circle dance? Oh, it is so much fun. I can teach you if you like. But first I must tie your tails together. So the rabbits gathered round, and Little Fox nodded their tails together. Then she ran up to the top of the hill and yelled, Run, rabbits, run! Wolf is on his way, and he looks very hungry. He's going to eat you up. The rabbits tried to run, but they were pulling in different directions. They pulled and pulled until, pop, they pulled their tails right off. Now it was Little Fox's turn to laugh, and laugh she did. But never again did she sing her clever song, and never again did she spend the night at a farmer's house. I see Nathan dropped in and said, I'm pretty sure I've dated this fox. GS says, could be a handbook for avoiding grifters. It's hard to say. I've noticed that a lot of the tales in this Ukrainian collection are about cleverness, about people sort of outsmarting and out-talking things. Some discussions about other things that are manipulative. Okay, so that's our first Little Fox story. The second Little Fox story is where we first see the wolf here. So the fox and the wolf are really often put together, and I don't know why. Because it may be somebody who knows something about nature more than me can tell me if there is a natural association or friendliness between wolves and foxes, because I don't know of one. But I will say that it is really common to have the wolf and the fox working together in some way. Usually together and against each other, which we'll see here as well. So this is going to be a tale about Little Fox and Brother Wolf. And the last tale also concerns Little Fox and Brother Wolf. And they get increasingly... well, this one, not so much. The last one is a bit violent. I'm going to say that now, in its own way. But anyways, this is The Garden, a story about Little Fox and Brother Wolf from The Magic Egg and Other Tales from Ukraine. One day, Little Fox and Brother Wolf were having tea together. As they sipped and chatted, their conversation eventually turned to their livelihoods. Ah, sighed Brother Wolf, I am getting too old for all this chasing around. Stealing sheep and hunting rabbits, it's very hard work. And to be honest, I've never felt quite right about it. The fox nodded. I know what you mean, she agreed. It's getting harder all the time. That's a typo in the book. The farmers are constantly trying to outsmart us. Why, just the other day I went to steal a chicken, and the farmer was there waiting for me. Would you believe he came after me with a pitchfork? I thought I would die. Little Fox shook her head, took a big slurp of tea. Well, maybe we should try to make an honest living, said the wolf. Little Fox looked puzzled. You know, he continued, we could grow a garden like the farmers do. It's not difficult. I've watched them many times. I know how to do it. Oh, the fox's ears pricked up. That's right, the wolf went on. All we need is a shovel and a hoe and a few seed potatoes. Seed potatoes? Why, I have some potatoes sprouting in my den right now, cried the fox. Then we're all set. The wolf set his teacup down and smiled. I have a shovel, and I know where I can get a hoe. Borrow a hoe, I mean. That's how Brother Wolf and Little Fox agreed to grow a garden. The next day they packed a picnic lunch of buns and butter and honey and set out to work. And when they reached a clearing, they hid their picnic basket among some bushes and went to the field and began to turn the soil. After digging a few shovelfuls of dirt... Oh, did my image freeze? I see that. Coming back it. Nothing but troubles today, is it? There we go. Sorry about that. Hopefully that wasn't too long. After digging a few shovelfuls of dirt, Little Fox began to huff and puff. Whew, she said. The sun is hot. She wiped the sweat from her brow. Grunted the wolf without looking up. He was intent on his hoeing. Little Fox looked around. This honest work was very boring, and it really wasn't easy as the wolf had promised. She was all out of breath. She was starting to get hungry, too. Oh, to have a lick of honey. Just then a crow that was sitting on the treetop made a loud caw, caw, caw. Little Fox looked up quickly. I'll be right there, she shouted, waving gaily, then set her shovel down and started walking away. What? Brother Wolf looked up from his work. Where are you going? Oh, I must go to the crow's nest, the fox explained. Mrs. Crow is having a baby, and I promised I would be the midwife. Keep digging. I'll catch up when I get back. Then off she trotted. As soon as the wolf's back was turned, though, Little Fox hurried into the bushes and helped herself to a big spoonful of honey. She sighed, happily licking her chops. She took a little nibble of a bun. Then she quickly put everything back the way it had been and ran back to the wolf, smiling and swishing her tail. What? Back so soon? Is the baby born already? Asked the wolf. Oh, yes, replied the fox. Was it a boy or a girl then? A boy. What did they name the boy? Beginning. The fox picked up her shovel, fixed her eyes on the ground, and began to dig. Beginning, marveled the fox. What a strange name. But the fox made no reply, and he went back to work. After a while, the fox started itching for more honey. Then the crow called out, Caw, caw, caw. Little Fox dropped her shovel and cried, I'm coming. Now what? The wolf asked. He was getting irritated. It's another baby coming for the crows. I must help them. Don't be long, cautioned the wolf. We still have a lot of work to do. Don't worry, the fox reassured. I'll be back before you know it. And she hurried away. Little Fox went straight for the bushes, where she feasted on honey and butter and buns. Then she put everything neatly back in the basket. There wasn't much left, but Little Fox felt much better. She returned to the garden. Back so soon? The wolf looked surprised. Has the baby come already? Oh, yes, smiled the fox. What was it then? A girl. Oh, the wolf smiled. And what did they name the girl? Middle, replied the fox. Middle, repeated the wolf. I've never heard such a name. The fox rolled her eyes. Among crows, such names are common, she retorted haughtily. That's why they make so much noise. The two friends resumed their work, but it wasn't long until the fox began thinking about honey again. Her mouth watered, and she looked around furtively for an excuse to leave. When she was certain the wolf wasn't looking, the little fox picked up a stone and threw it at the crow. The crow squawked loudly, and the little fox threw her shovel on the ground and wiped her paws on her apron. You're not leaving again, are you? Said the wolf crossly. Brother Wolf, the fox scolded. Didn't you hear the crow calling me? There's going to be another baby. I must hurry. Well, I've never heard of such a thing, the wolf grumbled. Why must you always be the one to help them out? The fox smiled. I'm the only one they trust with their young. The crows are quite fond of me. Well, all right, said the wolf, but don't dally. We have a lot of work to do. Don't worry, I'll be right back. Then the little fox rushed into the bushes, licked the honey pot clean, finished off the butter, and gobbled down the last of the buns. She left everything strewn about topsy-turvy and went back to the wolf. "Is the birth over already?" he asked. "Oh, yes," the fox smiled. "And what did they have this time?" "Another beautiful boy." What a great freeze it has done, though. I don't know why it's giving me so much trouble today. What did they name this boy? "Finish," replied the fox. "Well, I hope it means they're finished with these births for a while, and we can finish our work." Brother Wolf chuckled at his own cleverness. Then both animals got back to their gardening. So the fox and the wolf worked. When lunchtime came, the wolf set his hoe down. He was famished. Actually, he'd been hungry for some time, but he was too embarrassed to say anything. He waited for Little Fox to put her shovel down, but she just kept working. Brother Wolf tapped his foot, cleared his throat, and whistled, but the fox paid him no mind. Finally, he said loudly, "Isn't it time for lunch?" "Yes, of course," said the fox, but she kept digging, as though the work was more important than eating. "Aren't you hungry?" asked the wolf. "No, not really," the little fox replied. "The crows fed me when I was there. You go ahead and eat." So the wolf trudged into the bushes where they'd hidden the picnic basket, but when he reached the spot, his mouth fell open. There was empty, overturned basket, the honey pot licked clean, and the shiny, empty butter dish. Brother Wolf realized immediately that he'd been tricked. "So that's what Little Fox was doing," he thought to himself. "That's why those names were so strange. She made them up." Brother Wolf ran back toward the garden, shouting, "You scoundrel! That's how you earn an honest living. While I slave, you eat all the food. Just wait. I'll make you honest yet. I'll get even with you." Waving his fists in the air, the wolf charged into the garden. But Little Fox was long gone. She had heard his rantings and ravings and had run into the woods. By the time Brother Wolf reached the garden, Little Fox was hiding in a tree hollow somewhere. There she lay, patting her stomach and moaning, for she had the biggest bellyache of her entire life. Sorry for the tech issues there, for anybody who's watching. What I find interesting is there is this attempt to put some consequences right in the last sentence on both these stories to the fox, but the fox kind of wins all of them. And it's interesting because if it's made for kids, it seems to be you should be a scoundrel seems to be the message. Okay. This is the last story we'll read. Yeah, GS says Little Foxy's burning bridges. Yeah, I guess the point is just they're clever enough to make Bud do without anybody else. But this is their last story for the evening. This is from the Magic Egg. And this one is definitely the most grim. So, I wouldn't say it's really bad, especially compared to some of the fairy tales that we read around here. But I will say that, as a warning, it's a little dark. But not terrible. Just darker than the other two. I think there is the impression that these kind of rhyming and association to morals and stuff means that, these are children's stories. They're not necessarily children's stories, even these ones. So this is The Further Adventures of Fox and Wolf from the Magic Egg and Other Tales of Ukraine. Little Fox was walking down the road as hungry as can be. when she spied a pan of poppy seed buns sitting on a windowsill to cool. "Aha! Fresh from the oven," she thought to herself, and she grabbed one and ran. When she was far enough from the scene of the crime, Little Fox opened the bun, ate out the insides, leaving only the crusts. Then she filled the bun with straw and put it back together and began walking down the road again, smiling and humming to herself. By and by, she passed a herd of cows, and 2 young boys were driving them to water. "Hello," she waved gaily. "Hello to you, too." The cowherds waved back. Then Little Fox walked up to the boys. "Look at my beautiful poppy seed bun," she said, and she held the roll under their noses so they could smell it. "Wouldn't you like to have it? I bet you lads are hungry," she continued. The boys laughed. "Of course," they replied, "but what do we have to do to get the bun?" "Oh, I would take that little calf of yours off your hands for a trade." Little Fox smiled coyly. Pardon me. "I don't know," the oldest boy said, but the younger lad was ready to make the trade. He tugged on the other boy's sleeve anxiously. Little Fox continued her coaxing. "These buns are really good," she said. "I ate one myself just a few minutes ago, and it melted in my mouth." She waved the bun under the boys' noses again. "Well, all right," the older lad agreed, and he went to fetch the calf. When he returned with it, Little Fox handed him the bun gingerly, saying, "Be sure to say your prayers before eating. This is truly a bun to give thanks for." Then she took the calf and hurried away while the boys closed their eyes to pray. By the time they had finished their prayers, Little Fox had disappeared into the woods. So when they bit into the bun and realized it was filled with straw, there was nothing they could do but curse themselves. Can I just say, though, trading a poppy seed bun for a whole cow is a pretty bad trade. In the meantime, Little Fox felled a tree, split the wood, and built herself a small sleigh. She harnessed the calf to the sleigh, hopped on, and went driving through the forest. Little Fox was very proud of herself, and she held her chin up and smiled as she drove along. By and by, who should appear but Brother Wolf? He came loping toward the sleigh, waving furiously. "Hello there." "Oh, hello there," Little Fox waved back and stopped to say hello. "What a fine sleigh," exclaimed the wolf. "Wherever did you find it?" "Find it? Why, I made it myself," snorted the fox. Well, nodded the wolf. "What about the calf? Don't tell me you made that too." "I earned the calf, Wolfie," Little Fox retorted. "This is the kind of reward you can receive if you're willing to work for it." "Oh, yes, I see." The wolf stroked his chin pensively, then suddenly brightened. "Hey, can I ride with you for a bit? I could use a lift." "Oh, no," Little Fox shook her head. "This sleigh is only built for one. If you get on, it will break." "Don't be silly, Little Fox. You worry too much," the wolf scoffed. "If it will make you feel better, I'll put just one paw on the sleigh." Little Fox scowled and said nothing. "Oh, please, 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 please," begged the wolf. Finally, Little Fox gave in. "See," Wolf said, carefully placing his paw on the sleigh, "your sleigh is fine." Little Fox didn't say a word, but she whipped the calf and off they went. After a time, the wolf spoke again. "I think I'll put another paw up." "No!" shrieked the fox. "You'll break the sleigh." "No, I won't. I'll be careful. Just let me try it." "Oh, all right." The fox and the wolf rode along, and suddenly there was a loud creak. "Ah! There goes my sleigh!" screamed the fox. Brother Wolf just shook his head. No. That was just my bones creaking," he said. "You know I'm very tired." So the two rode on. Then the wolf said, "Perhaps I'll put my third paw up." No, the fox protested. "I told you the sleigh is only built for one." But again the wolf begged, and the little fox eventually gave in. Along they went, and then creak. "Oh no, now my sleigh is really breaking," cried the fox. "Little fox, I told you. You worry too much. I was just cracking a nut." The wolf worked his jaws as though he were chewing, and the fox grew quiet again. Then she said, Well, how about cracking one for me?" "Well, I would, but that was my last one," replied the wolf. So the two rode on for a bit. "I think I'll put my fourth paw up," said the wolf. "Oh, no, you don't. You'll surely break my sleigh." "Just let me try for 1 minute. I promise I'll be careful." The wolf pleaded and begged until the fox gave in. As soon as the wolf put his fourth paw up, though, the sleigh groaned and buckled and fell to pieces. Little Fox was furious. "Look what you've done to my beautiful sleigh," she fumed. "I told you not to get on. Now it's ruined." Brother Wolf hung his head while the fox shouted and screamed and scolded. Finally, the fox threw her paws in the air and exclaimed, "I guess you'll just have to build me a new one. That's all there is to it." "But foxy friend," the wolf protested, "I don't know how to build a sleigh. I'm just a poor, uneducated wolf." "Nonsense," cried the wolf. "I'll tell you what to do." Then the fox led the wolf to a tall stand of trees. Looking up, she said, "All you do is yell, 'Fall down, trees, crooked and straight.' You do that till you have enough lumber to build a sleigh. Get it?" "I think so," the wolf mumbled. So the fox tied her calf to a bush and went to find some water while the wolf felled trees. "Fall down, trees, crooked and, crooked." The wolf spoke timidly at first. A big tree crashed to the ground. Seeing that he was getting results, Brother Wolf yelled louder, "Fall down, tree, crooked and crooked." More trees fell. The wolf kept shouting. Soon the ground was covered with trees, but they were all crooked and not suitable for sleigh building. When Little Fox returned, she was shocked. "What have you done now, you big oaf?" "I did just as you told me. I said, 'Fall down, trees, crooked and crooked.'" "Oh, you nincompoop! You're supposed to say, 'Fall down, trees, crooked and straight.'" The wolf hung his head in shame. "You'd better try again," the fox continued. "I'm going to try and find some dinner. When I get back, that wood better be ready." Little Fox stomped off in a huff. This time, Brother Wolf got it right. "Fall down, trees, crooked and straight," he yelled, and as soon as there was enough wood for the sleigh, he stacked it into a pile and sat down. The wolf wiped his brow and sighed. "Chopping wood is hard work. Now I'm hungry." Brother Wolf looked around to see if Little Fox was coming, but she was nowhere in sight. Then he glanced around to see if there was anything to nibble on, and his gaze fell on the little calf. Well, he knew it wasn't right, but hadn't Little Fox been cruel to him? The wolf went over to the calf, tore a hole in its side, and ate all the meat. Then he stuffed the hide with sparrows and sealed the hole with straw, propped the calf against the bush, and ran off. By and by, Little Fox returned. She hadn't found any dinner, but she was glad to see all the wood. Quickly she built herself a new sleigh and tied the calf's rope to it. Then she sat in the sleigh and yelled, "Giddy up!" But the calf did not move. "Giddy up!" she shouted louder and whipped the calf. Still, it did not move. Little Fox got out of the sleigh, marched up to the calf, ready to give it a licking. But as she approached, she noticed a little tuft of straw sticking out of the calf's side. Little Fox tugged on the straw, and out flew the birds. What was left of the calf toppled to the ground. Now Little Fox was really mad. She knew exactly what had happened, and she vowed to get even with Brother Wolf. Meanwhile, she was hungrier than ever, and so she set off down the road in search of food. It was not long before she saw some Jumaks, that is, cart drivers, driving a wagon filled with fish. Quickly she ran ahead of them and lay down on the road, pretending she was dead. When the driver saw the fox, he stopped his wagon and got off. And by the way, if you remember, this part of the tale is repeated in Norwegian, a Norwegian tale we wrote. Well, he said. "What have we here? A dead fox?" He gave the fox a little nudge with his foot, but she didn't move. "I think his pelt will make some fine fur caps for my children," he said, and he threw the fox onto the wagon and drove on. As soon as Little Fox knew the Jumaks weren't looking, she grabbed a fish and tossed it to the side of the road. Then she grabbed another and did the same thing. She kept doing this until she had thrown about a half a dozen fish off the cart. Then she jumped out too. She gathered up all the fish and began feasting, for she was famished. As she was eating, who should come walking up but Brother Wolf? "Hello," he cried, grinning. "Hello to you too." The fox scowled and did not look up from her dinner. "What are you doing, Little Fox?" the wolf asked. "What does it look like?" she snapped back. "I'm eating fish." "My, they certainly look tasty." "They are tasty, Wolfie. But don't think I'll give one to you. I know what happens when I share my things with Brother Wolf." The wolf looked away, embarrassed, but those fish smelled good. "Well, won't you at least tell me how to catch my own fish, then?" he pleaded. "Oh, all right," the fox replied, chomping and smacking her lips. Then she wiped her mouth and paws and pointed to the river, which was frozen over with ice. "See that river?" she began. "What you need to do is go over there, cut a hole in the ice, then stick your tail down the hole and swish it about in the water, yelling, 'Bite, fish, bite, big and small.' Keep yelling that over and over until you get all the fish you need." Brother Wolf quickly thanked the fox and ran to the river. He chopped a hole in the ice, just as Little Fox had told him, then stuck his tail into the water and swung it back and forth, yelling, "Bite, fish, bite, big and big only." Little Fox watched the wolf from the corner of her eye and chuckled softly. "Freeze, wolf tail, freeze," she said. "Did you say something, Little Fox?" the wolf called. "Oh, I was just saying, 'Bite, fish, bite, big and small,'" she replied. "Thanks for your help, friend. But my tail is getting very heavy now. In fact, I can hardly move it." "Then you must pull it out, of course." But when the wolf tried to pull his tail out, the river, it was frozen fast. "Come help me, Little Fox," he cried. Little Fox ran up, and together they pulled and pulled until, pop, the wolf's tail was pulled off. "Oh dear," Brother Wolf whimpered. "Why did this happen?" Little Fox scolded. "What were you saying?" "I said, 'Bite, fish, bite, big and big only,'" confessed the wolf. "Well, no wonder," exclaimed the fox. "That's why your tail was so heavy." The wolf felt foolish without a tail. "What will I do?" he whined. Little fox scratched her head. I know. I'll go to the village and see if I can find some brandy and a bandage. She went scurrying off, leaving the wolf behind. When the fox reached the village, she sneaked into one of the houses where some bread dough had been left to rise. She ate several handfuls, then took some more and smeared it on her head. Then she returned to the wolf. Brother Wolf was still lying by the side of the river, sobbing. Little Fox held her head as if she was in great pain. Oh me! Oh my! She moaned. Wolf looked up. What happened? He snuffled. Did you find the brandy and bandages? No! No! Wailed the fox. The villagers saw me, and they beat me so hard they cracked my skull, and now I'm losing my brains. Of course, it's not their brains. It's the dough she found. What? The wolf squinted and pulled a face. Oh, that looks awful. If you think it looks awful, you should know how it feels, said the fox. I think you're going to have to carry me home. But little fox, I've been wounded myself. The fox began wailing even louder. Brother Wolf stood up and hobbled over. Little Fox climbed on his back and sighed deeply. Then they started for home. As they went along, Little Fox stretched out and smiled. Ah, this was a fine way to travel. Finally, the wolf was paying for his bad behavior. Little Fox mumbled under her breath, "The loser carries the winner." And she chuckled softly. What was that, Little Fox? Oh, I was just saying the loser carries the loser, she replied. Oh. On and on they went until they came to the fox's den. Then Little Fox jumped down and yelled out, "The loser carried the winner home!" And she laughed and laughed. What? Brother Wolf's eyes bulged and his fur stood on end. Why, you! And he turned to pounce on the fox, but she was too fast. Into her den she flew, quick as a wink. As the wolf stood snapping and growling at her door, she giggled and repeated, "The loser carried the winner, because he's such a sinner." Well, the wolf stood there for a while, but soon realized he was only making a fool of himself. So he left cursing and muttering that he would never, ever trust Little Fox again. After that, why? Brother Wolf and Little Fox had many more adventures together, because that's how wolves and foxes are. And that is our last story of the night. Thank you to everybody who has stuck it out and said hello. It's been really great reading that for you. I'll remind you one more time that you should donate to the Red Cross, because they certainly need it for the many problems in the world. GS says, did the same guy write all of these? No, that's the wild thing. So I think the collector of this, which is a lady, whose name is slipping my mind right now, might have connected those stories together. But here's the wild thing. If I had more time and like the energy to do it, frankly, I would read you the Brother Wolf and Fox story from the Scottish folktales as well, and the other I would read you the other tales to show you that, because those collections are predate this one by like 100 years, and the two collections that I'm referring to have nothing in common with each other. To show you that this character of this little wolf, our Brother Wolf and Clever Fox, are repeated on the whole sort of rim of Europe, at least. It's a really sort of the north to eastern rim. It's really odd, frankly, because you see common stories, but to see a persistent character. And it is interesting to me because, a lot of people talk about how what were once stories of spirits or gods in paganism become things like that, like Little Wolf and whatever else. So it's possible that these are all references to a common mythology or a theology, really, about a spirit fox. that comes around and tricks you. And it just kind of got, when you get into the Christianization of a lot of these folk tales, they turn into an actual talking fox and things like that, rather than the spirit that it probably was originally. But nonetheless, Little Fox is a persistent character. And nobody told me this, by the way. Just after a year of reading these, I was like, does everybody have a story about this little fox? And it behaves about the same in all of them. Sometimes more helpful. Some areas more helpful. Always a little tricky, though. Always tricksy. So yeah, I mean, you may not agree, and maybe like the advertisement feels cheap then, but to me, it feels like a Saturday morning cartoon kind of character. It's like an original version of like a Looney Tunes character. This talking animal that, it's got some morals, but that's not really the point. It's just sort of clever and silly and fun and relatable for kids who want to be clever. GS says, yeah, the character is amazingly consistent. Yeah, and I'm sure some of that has to do with the collector of the story, but of the stories, noticing them and then maybe tweaking it a bit so that it gets along better. But Clever Little Fox comes up in too many places in a fairly similar way for it to just be that. Well, anyways, this has been Fireside Fairytales. If you enjoy this, we do this every Tuesday at 6:30. We read stories for about an hour from different cultures, and that's about it. Thank you so much for everybody coming by. If you enjoy things like story readings by me, I put one up last week of an original story of mine. It's on its third part of a 4-part story called The Deadwood Reaches. You can see that in our live reads playlist, as well as stuff from Felix Wong and Avalon Bourne and Dana Mahana. And anyways, follow us on Twitter and Instagram if you don't already at Varietal_lit, or go and check out our stories at varietal-literature.ca, which is linked down below. I've been Rory. This has been a wonderful time by the fire with you. I'll go and make the bed and keep the fire warm. You guys have a good sleep.